What if the answer to your prayer didn't come in the way that you expected? After 9 surgeries, medications, and nearly a decade of chronic pain and depression, Heather was ready to end it all. In her darkest moment, God showed up, and what happened next changed not just her life, but her entire family's. If you've ever wondered if healing is still possible, this episode will stir your faith and remind you it's never too late. Welcome to Testimony Thursday on Faith Over Pharma. These are real, raw stories of everyday people who said yes to natural healing and watched God move in amazing ways. Quick disclaimer, nothing you hear today is medical advice, a diagnosis, or even a miracle guarantee, but it might just stir your faith and blow your mind. So go grab your electrolytes and let's get into this week's story. Today's guest is someone whose story is going to stir your spirit and remind you that it's never too late for healing. Heather is a mom, grandma, and a woman who radiates compassion for others because she knows firsthand what it feels like to lose hope. After an injury in 2015 left her disabled, she endured 9 surgeries over 8 years, took 9 medications just to function, and battled pain, depression, heart issues, and more. She says that she was at the end of her rope the night before she discovered a light-based technology that would change her life. And today, she's not only living again, but she's thriving. And she's on a mission to help others experience the same kind of transformation, including her own parents, whose stories we'll hear about too. So if you've ever wondered whether healing is possible after years of pain, or you felt like that spark inside of you is fading, Heather's testimony is going to meet you right where you are. So Heather, I'm so honored to have you here today. Can you kind of just start by telling us your story? What happened?
Well, thanks for having me on today. And I'm so blessed to be able to share this story with people that might be dealing with or feeling kind of the same emotions or dealing with the same situation in many different ways of what was going on with me. Before my injury, I was a very active person, very physical, working, hardworking person. People just kind of questioned how I had so much energy because I was just a go, doer. Well, in 2015, I was injured on the job and left me with a damaged ulnar nerve in my left arm. Well, we did 3 surgeries on that, moving the nerve and trying to get it to function again, and it it didn't work. It left me with no use of my left arm and my hand. I ended up having to wear a brace on my hand just to keep it open. So going through that, and then I had right shoulder surgery because I blew up my right arm, left me basically with no use of that arm, didn't have any tissue left in my shoulder. They had to put a cadaver piece in there. Well, that didn't hold because there was no tissue. So I was left with no use of basically either arm. I mean, I could do basic functions, daily, but then it was putting me on medications to deal with, the discomfort still. I was on the highest dose of gabapentin you could be on, and I was still in discomfort. I mean, it just throbbed daily. I would take ibuprofen. I would take 4 of them 3 times a day, pop them like candy, just to try and deal with it. Well, then, of course, depression sat in. So then I was on depression medicine. I was on anxiety medicines. Then my heart, something started going wrong with that, wasn't feeling right. Cardiologists couldn't really figure out what was going on or whatever, and through all the testing, but here's another medication. Just it was something about the electrical, it wasn't wired correctly or something. I don't know. I'm like, okay, we're supposed to trust our doctors. Okay, a medication, is going to help that. Then high blood pressure came on. So then I was on high blood pressure medicine. Then with all the medications, then I was getting acid reflux. So then came acid reflux medication. So it was just one after another after another. Being on so many medications and especially the gabapentin, I was tired all the time. I mean, I couldn't really function. I'd get up, didn't really even want to get up, depression, but I was on depression medicine, but I was severely depressed. So let's figure that one out. So anyway, long story short, because I could go on and on and on about all that, but I just had gotten to a point where the depression really, really, really got to me. And sorry, still kind of gets to me telling the story, this part. The night that really kind of hit home was I didn't want to live anymore. And I called my mom. I grabbed all my medications, just started dumping them into my hand. And I told my mom, Mom, I can't do it anymore. I said, Mom, I don't have a purpose in life anymore. There's no reason for me to be on this earth. I get up, do a few things, and I lay on the couch. I said, I can't do it anymore. I said, I have a handful of medications and I'm done. So I'm calling you to tell you goodbye and I love you. I put them in my mouth and my mom was screaming, No, I can't. No, Heather, you know what? God's got something for you. God's going to work this out for you. We're going to keep praying. Just don't. So, of course, listening to my mom screaming, and, that just got to me and broke down. And so I did spit them out. And, we got off the phone. We kind of finished our conversation and got off the phone. And I just went in on my knees in my living room by my couch and I just sobbed and cried to God and said, God, I need a purpose. God, I can't do it. What do you have for me in my life that I can do or to restore my life again or to do something again? So I finally just I mean he just I think kind of comforted me and I did end up going to bed. Well, lo and behold, the next day I was on my phone scrolling through Facebook, and a gal that I had friended like a year before, didn't know her, but she was friends with people that I'd gone to high school with. So I kind of chuckle at this part just because I'm thinking, okay, am I getting Alzheimer's now too? Because I don't remember her, thinking maybe I went to high school with her and I just didn't remember her. But anyway, she friended me, asked me to be her friend. She was in a different company selling some other stuff. So I just friended her or whatever. Well, so that next day, she started posting about this technology. I messaged her and I said, What is this? She sent me the information and I said, This is God. I want it. I'm in. God showed me right there and then that He was providing something for me. So I ordered it a couple days later, received it in the mail, and started using it.
Man, you really got me because when you think about just in the way that the world is now, and a lot of times I think there's so much noise and there's so many distractions out there that a lot of times, especially when we're not feeling well, because I wholeheartedly believe that, health is our greatest gift. And when we don't have that anymore, it is so much more difficult to do anything else. And so when you hit that point of, not thinking that there's anything better on the other side, or all you can see is pain and difficulty and struggle, and we're not sure if God's like hearing us in those moments. And the fact that you got this delivered to you the next day when you'd hit your breaking point, I think is pretty incredible. And so many times I think because it's so noisy and there's so many distractions that we're quick to sort of brush that off, or not really tune into when God is giving us. There's that story about the guy who's was in the flood and was up on the roof of his house and he kept praying out to God like, help me, and this guy comes up in a boat and it's like a helicopter comes and all of these things and he declines it each time. And when he ends up drowning and going to heaven, he's like, God, where were you? And he's like, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. Like, what else did you need from me? And I think sometimes we can be so distracted that we miss the boat or the helicopter or the message. So I'm glad that you really tuned in to that. So tell me, you get these patches, what happens?
I started Pat wearing them, and I truly felt this was God. Did I know what was going to happen? Absolutely no. But I'm like, okay, well, obviously this is something he provided. And that's the thing too. People need to look for different ways of how God is going to provide for us. It's not going to be a lightning strike and boom, you know, we've got to open our eyes and broaden our faith of how God is going to provide for us and different ways of maybe healing, different ways of dealing with a situation or whatever. We always want it our way, our way, our way, and think in our mind, this is how I want it. So this is how God's going to do it. No, 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 no. That's not how God works. So I started patching and it took about 30 days. 30 days. And one morning I woke up and I was like, my brain was like, wow, I kind of want to do something today. I was like running down the stairs instead of, dragging my feet like, okay, yeah, it's just another day. I was like, boy, what can I do today? Now, keep in mind, I still didn't have the use of my arms. I wasn't just, let's go out and build a house or anything. But my mind just was different. I felt different. So I'm like, okay, there's something to these. So I kept using them. 60 days went by and I and got up, went into the bathroom, was doing my thing. All of a sudden I looked down. My hand was open. I didn't have my brace on. My hand was open. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like opening and shutting it, opening and shutting it. Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. And yeah. So then I really was running down the stairs because I'm like, okay, maybe I can actually do something different today. Don't know what that was going to be, but I just continued wearing them, and then it will get into then my parents' story because after 2 months, and then they see that this is going on with me. They were like, okay, well, my dad had long COVID. He had blood clots in his lungs. He was on an oral shot and or oral medication and shots in his stomach. And he was doing this for 6 months to try and dissolve these. And he had just gone in for his appointment, which he had to do every 30 days. So at my 60-day mark, he had just gone in and they're like, well, we're just going to have to keep doing them, keep doing them. And hopefully, we'll get some, I don't know if they upped his medication or the dosage of it or what. And I said, Dad, you're going to start wearing these. I said, look at my hand. Look at me. He's like, okay. My mom was very skeptical because she had fibromyalgia. And she's like, She goes, well, I'll wait and see what happens with Dad first. 30 days went by after getting him on the patches and he had his next appointment. The blood clots were gone. Yeah, the doctor was like, oh, you don't need to do these shots and take this medication anymore. Then that kind of got my mom really thinking. She's like, well, okay, your hand's functioning. You're in a better mood. You're here in our kitchen. You're still with us. That happened with him. Okay, we'll try it. I started patching her. She suffered from fibromyalgia for 34 years. I mean, we couldn't even touch her. I couldn't give her a hug for, I don't, years. I don't even remember the last time I was able to touch her because her fibro was so bad, just from her nerves being so inflamed and stuff. And there were times where she would be on the couch or she'd be up for 2 weeks straight because she couldn't sit, she couldn't lay down, she couldn't do anything, she couldn't have anything touching her body. So I started her on this technology, and in probably 60 days, I could give her a hug. I could give her a hug. Did she have a few little flare ups still? Yeah, but they weren't as bad. The longer she kept going on, now she has not had a flare up. She's been on them for 2 years and she has not had one flare up.
Man, that's absolutely, I mean, I'm not really surprised because I've seen numerous miracles from different people and their stories of wearing the patches. And I feel like sometimes when you have lived in your body, either with chronic pain or whatever, that it's not because it's not medication, it's your body doing its own healing that like you talk about like the lightning bolt from the Lord, it's not this for a lot of people, it is they call them one patch wonders where all of a sudden it's night and day difference. And I will say, like, for me, I started with really bad back pain, and as soon as I put them on, it went away. But as far as like long-term healing, things that you've been battling for years and years and years, it's probably not going to happen overnight. But because it's such a gradual thing, I think like for me, even to sort of think of, because I've only been really using them consistently for probably 6 months, but it's like every day I notice something that's like, oh, well, that's better than it was. But it wasn't like a aha jolt, or even because we're so used to medications giving us like an immediate response that the patches don't necessarily always give an immediate response. I mean, you talked about like 30 days in, you were like, all of a sudden it was kind of like, huh, my brain is like different, right?
Right, right. Yeah, but even with pharmaceuticals, with medication, sometimes it takes time for your body to adjust to them. But people are so okay with a medication because that's what their doctor says that they have to take. But they're willing to take that time to let that medication take care of the symptom. It's not healing and getting your body to function the way it's supposed to. It's just taking care of that symptom. But the problem that people don't understand is then in another, okay, that symptom may be feeling better. Oh, but now I've got this other thing going on because this medication that they put you on for this now is causing this issue. Oh, well, here's another medication because now we got to take care of that symptom. Then you're just getting a whole slew of different things to take care of 10 different symptoms that's wreaking havoc on your body. With
Mm-hmm.
this little patch, you don't have to do that because it takes care of everything.
Yes, preach it. I mean, is your medication, if you have to get a refill, is it really doing what you want it to do? Like, if you have to keep going, and I get there are some things where interventions are needed, but like I will give the example of when I went in for my 2 week postpartum, my baby's screaming his head off because I interrupted breastfeeding to go in and see the doctor. He's losing his ever loving mind. I was in the middle of a feed. They take my blood pressure, it's elevated. Okay. They give me 5 minutes to calm myself. My baby's still screaming, still wanting to feed. Come back, it's lower but still elevated. The response was, here, you need to take this blood pressure medication. Now, if you take it, notice like you're in the shower and you feel like you're going to faint, call us. And I'm thinking, like, why would I take a medication for high blood pressure when I don't have high blood pressure? Like, let's use our thinking caps about the way your body works, that I have a crying baby and I'm responding to the crying baby.
Right, right. Yeah, stresses in life are going to elevate. And then the first thing people do is, oh my gosh, they freak out instead of saying, okay, what's going on in my life that might be causing this? Or did I just go through a traumatic, situation? Did I have a bad day at work? Did you get a bad phone call? Something. But yeah, people are so programmed to, oh my goodness, I got to call the doctor. And then, of course, what's the doctor going to do? Because they aren't taught health, they are taught to take care of your symptoms. But with me, after 6 months, I got off all my medications. I don't have a functioning thyroid. So, yeah, I have to be on some kind of medication or something. But 6 months ago, when I went in to do blood work that I have to have done every 6 months, she had to lower my dose. Now, keep in mind, I just said I don't have a functioning thyroid, but this technology must be doing something, providing my body with something that she's lowering my dose. So I'm I'm due for new blood work, but and I don't suggest this to anybody. This I'm doing this myself. I'm only taking my medication every other day because I don't want to go into the doctor and have my blood work done. I mean, I do just because I want to see where it's at, but I don't feel like I'm needing it. I don't feel that sluggish. I don't feel those symptoms that I would normally have. So I'm just kind of prolonging the have to go in to see the doctor.
I don't blame you. I don't like to go see the doctor either for them to just tell me that, hey, you look great. Oh, I know. Like,
Right.
thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, tell me, how has your faith sort of played a role in this healing journey? Because I think it's so important. And you and I were talking about that ahead of when we hit record, but just about like Christians and believing that God wants us well. He was created, like He created our bodies to function and be well and be energetic and fulfill a purpose in life. And sometimes we get so caught up in the noise and the negativity or focusing on bad things, or maybe we're not making the right choices with our health. I know I was a Dr. Pepper addict and ate all the fast food and felt like junk because of it, which meant I yelled at my kids more than I wanted to. Like I was not the mom I wanted to be because I wasn't taking care of myself. And so I think you have a really powerful message to share, and I would love to hear it.
Well, don't get me wrong. I mean, I drank Diet Coke. I mean, I drank probably a 12 pack or more of Diet Coke a day. I didn't eat healthy. So, no, I was there. Yeah, I believed in going to the doctor and taking medications, and because that's what we were taught. That's how society and the world is. But when you really look back at it, and I had an analogy first thing this morning when I woke up, this popped into my head. Back in the day, before diseases and things really start happening, God provided food on the land, our crops. He provided us to, walk barefoot. Why do you think they wore thin shoes, back in Christ's day? Because so they could be grounding, so they could get that energy from the ground. They didn't have illnesses and diseases really back then in the day. So, you really think about back then, yeah, God provided those things for us. Well, then you think, then when Rockefeller came, Satan has to have his hand in things. So Satan sees he doesn't want Jesus and God to win. He's got to have his hand in there. So he says, "Oh, I'm gonna snatch this guy up, Rockefeller, and he's gonna invent the pharmaceutical industry, and so he can provide these medications so people aren't living well, people aren't thriving. So yeah, so then the pharmaceutical company comes in and is developed, and so yeah, now all these diseases start happening. They start spraying our crops and blah blah blah. So now it's one thing after another. But you know what? My faith, because I know God, like you said, wants us well. He doesn't want us sick. And he says, I'm not going to let Satan win. He has provided this tool, this technology, because it is allowing our bodies to do what he designed it to do. But that was what I woke up to. I mean, the minute I opened my eyes, that popped into my head on that analogy.
But it is so powerful. And I say that often because when I personally had a vaccine injury from a vaccine that I got from the military prior to deployment to the Middle East in late 2018. And I had gone from crushing a workout every single day and being on top of my game to immediately after my joints ached, my muscles fatigued very, very quickly, almost passed out. I had a headache for months and months after. And what's crazy about that whole thing, and I plan on doing an episode about it, but I started going down the rabbit hole on like, please just like I know this is what caused this issue because it happened immediately. I mean, my run time on my mile and a half went down by 2 minutes, which is a lot in a mile and a half. Immediately, I couldn't even get through a warm up of a workout, and I was crushed because like I don't know if you talk about like your life flashes before your eyes, but like I was passionate about health and fitness. I was helping other people, and I couldn't even get through a warm up of a workout. And I'd been healthy and active my entire life. And now all of a sudden, I felt like a 90-year-old woman who was like running a marathon with obstacles, just walking around the block. Like I was miserable. So I was just looking out there, like, is there hope for me? Am I ever going to feel? And I was just trying to find, and there's tons of other service members that also had anecdotally the same issues post anthrax vaccination. And thankfully, someone recommended that I do a metals detox, which the anthrax vaccine has 600 micrograms of aluminum, which
Oh,
I am certain
goodness.
is what caused mine. So, in any other circumstance, not vaccine related because that's waived, but in any other circumstance, if something is 25 micrograms of aluminum, it's labeled as toxic and it has 600. And
Wow.
so I was able to do a metals detox and completely heal. But that process led me on this path of realizing God did make a mistake when he created our bodies. He wasn't like, shoot, I left that out. I'm so glad man has come up with these things. And when
Right.
I really started studying all the ingredients, like it forever opened my mind, and I was well educated when COVID came around and the vaccine, so that I was like basically like this is my line in the sand, like the hill I prepared to die on. Like I am not getting it because I wholeheartedly believed that it was going to be detrimental to my health, and I couldn't afford, since I was completely restored, I was not going to allow that to stand in my way again. But it led me on this whole other like, well, what else have I been missing in all of these things? And the Lord really revealed that to me, to where my experience during COVID and even being in the military and forced to get vaccinations, like I just said, no, kick me out if you want. That's fine. And I was able to stay in until I retired last year. But and then I was kind of known as that, the one who didn't give up, which is like a whole other thing. Like I was really in that whole process when I was like, why, God, why are you making me feel this way? It wasn't until 3 years later that I got the answer. And it was so that I was educated and knew. I mean, my whole life was changed because of that situation. So it's pretty powerful if we like stop and listen what is ailing us or what God is speaking to us, what we actually can hear if we stop and listen.
Well, but yeah, we do have to stop and listen, and we have to have a little more faith in the sense of not wanting it our way. I mentioned that just a little bit ago too. But that's the biggest thing is we're praying for something, we're wanting something to change, and we think that he's going to do it in a certain way. And no, and he takes us through these trials and these tribulations. And I think to strengthen our faith and to draw us closer to him and rely on him. But if you're not listening and looking for other ways, other means, are you really putting your full faith into him? And are you really drawing closer to him if you're still wanting to do it your way?
Well, and I think my husband and I were talking about this yesterday. We're just, what do we put in our faith in and our, idolizing different things and people and things of this world? Because I will say that being caught up in a lot of that stuff can really eat you up, and bodies aren't made to withstand that amount of like stress and cortisol response repeatedly over and over again, just with all the doomsday stuff that's on social media, which I think personally is part of the plan, is just to chip away and wear at people emotionally and psychologically and spiritually, all the things, because then it obviously does affect your health. But like, to get away from all of that and just really surrounding myself with positive people, because when I live in my little bubble, it's pretty great.
Right, right. Well, and and that's the other great benefit to this is the community, the people, like-minded, lovers of our Lord, and that want the same outcome. It's almost like a family. And and that's been good for me as well with all this. Just because, I sat in the house for almost 10 years. I didn't have friends. I wasn't out mingling and doing things, and I became lonely. So this has been another great thing with this is just the community, the people.
And I think if 2020 taught us anything, I mean, that was the one thing that they said, that people's health all around the board was greatly diminished because of the lack of community. And I don't think the Lord created us to live in isolation. So certainly having a community of people who are like-minded and sharing the light and love and positivity is like, why wouldn't you want that, you know?
Exactly.
So if somebody is listening and they're where you were, maybe they're stuck in pain or hopelessness, they're feeling, maybe they're dependent on meds, what would you want to say to them?
How would it feel to have a different life? How would it feel to be able to go and live life again? I don't know. I don't know how I would actually word it to them, but just to be able to, make them, I guess, think about your life not being bogged down and feeling yucky still, taking those medications. You're reversing in age. I'm 55, but I feel like I'm 25. you know, why not give a chance? You're giving a chance on a medication that's not doing any good for you. So, why not take a chance on something God has provided for us? And there's doctors that have even said that, even David Schmidt, the inventor, has said, there's a 97% efficacy rate of everybody getting a result. Well, that other 3 to 4%, whatever, is you're either not patching or you quit patching and you didn't wait to get your result. But you will get a result. It's just a matter of how strongly you want to change your life. Are
Hmm.
you ready to write? Are you ready for a new story? Are you ready to rewrite your story for a better story than what where you're at right now?
And so I have heard him talk about that, 3 to 4%, and also it being that they're not doing foundationally things for their health, whether it's nutrition, sleep, hydration, taking in proper minerals and electrolytes, that they may not see things because foundationally, health-wise, I mean, you can't really just expect to feel great if you're not doing the things that are going to make you feel great, right?
Right. I mean, it is a life-changing thing. I mean, it's, you don't have to do it all overnight, but, you do. I mean, if you truly want better health, why not eliminate all the Diet Coke that you're drinking every day? So, yeah, it's a life-changing thing, but why
Mhm.
wouldn't you? You
Right.
know?
And as a former Dr. Pepper addict who could never imagine my life without it, like I haven't had Dr. Pepper or any sodas in probably, I don't know, 15 years now. But I literally, back in the day when I was in the depths of my addiction, I literally could not imagine just drinking water. Like it was so outside of what my own like realm of possibility was. And people who say, "Oh, I never touched this stuff," like I just was almost a tad bit envious of that. Like, how can you do that? But it was so, I didn't think that it was going to be possible for me to be one of them, you know? And
Right.
it did take, honestly, I didn't know how bad I felt until I felt good. And I think that we can get so bogged down. I had, chronic migraines and digestive issues almost my entire life and just accepted that that was just how life was going to be for me until I kind of hit rock bottom and started diving in and peeling back the layers of my own health and fixing my gut, which took several years of diligence and trial and error, but in education, obviously, because when I grew up in Texas, eating was not really conducive to the lifestyle that I, wanted or how I wanted to feel. But I definitely think that if you have good foundations, whether it's just starting with, something, but equipping yourself with the tools that are going to help you want to do those things is so, so powerful.
Yes. Yes. And that's just it, even people wanting to lose weight. Well, three-fourths of that is probably inflammation in your body. I mean, I did. I was 200 and some pounds. And yeah, a lot of it came off was inflammation. Yes, I changed my eating habits as well. Now, I will say because I kind of got off the track a little bit, and yeah, I've put some on back on my weight, but you know what? It's it's because I chose not to stay on that eating habit of where I was. So now I'm back into that. But it's just getting out, walking and exercising. And that's the other thing people don't. You've got to move your body as well.
They say that I've heard that sitting is the new smoking, and and that's what is killing people is just sitting. And I know for me personally, when 2020 hit and the world shut down, I had been so used to going and sitting at my office desk and then coming home and sitting at the TV and I do my workouts or whatever, 30, 45 minutes a day, but it was not active. And when COVID hit and the world shut down, I rediscovered my love for bike riding. And I couldn't remember a time that I had felt so euphoric since I was a kid when I was outside and being active. So it really was sort of like the record scratch for me in my lifestyle where it did reintroduce an active lifestyle, which has translated into like my kids are very active and that's just who we are and what we do. But I was just so used to the rat race and the stress of it all and oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. And even just being out in the sun, I had been trying to get pregnant for 2 years and then COVID shut down the world. I started riding my bike and bam, I got pregnant. And I think it was the vitamin D and movement that did it, even though all my labs were normal and all of that. But there is something to be said about just being active. So I'm a big fan of dance parties in your kitchen and riding your bike,
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Like
Right.
whatever you enjoy movement wise, that's always what I recommend because people ask me, I spent the last probably 15 years in the health and fitness space and it's like, well, what workout do you recommend for this or that? And I'm like, well, what do you enjoy? Because whatever you enjoy, you're going to do more consistently. So if it's dancing, which is really hard to do if you're in pain, or riding your bike, again, really hard to do if you're in pain. So let's eliminate that piece of the puzzle and get you feeling good so that you want to do the things that are going to improve your health.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I had in October of 2022, I had a back surgery. I had every shot and every thing that they could do to eliminate my low back pain. Well, I ended up having a fusion done. Well, if I would have just waited a few more months to get these patches, I wouldn't have had the back surgery. Now I can't reverse that. Now I have hardware in there. But you know what? still with these patches, I manage it, the pain and discomfort naturally rather than putting ibuprofen down me and, wreaking havoc on my system. So without this technology, I wouldn't be able to, spend time with and take care of my granddaughter. That's just 20 months old. Now being active, up and going. So I wouldn't be able to do that if it was not for this technology.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story and spreading some light. And if somebody is wanting to connect with you, maybe they have questions or they resonate with your story, how can they find you?
They can definitely send me an email, which is hcooker, and that's KOOKER at gmail.com. I will provide my phone number as well. If you would like to text me to connect, is 515-250-7815. After we connect, we can definitely have a phone call as well. This is God's gift to us. We've got to just be open minded and reach out and grab it. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing it, because there are so many people out there that are crying and praying and wanting and needing a miracle. And there's so much depression and anxiety going on with things going on in the world today. And, if you can walk around just putting a little sticker on you and continue on with life, it's worth a shot.
It's literally like the easiest thing you could possibly do for yourself. And it always blows my mind when I'm talking to people and I'll ask them, like, oh, have you been patching? Like, oh, no, I've gotten busy. And I'm thinking, like, well, that brain fog and your inability to sleep that's making you feel that way would be so much more improved if you would just take the time, the 5 seconds to stick a sticker on you. It's literally the easiest. And I think that that's part of why people are maybe so skeptical about it is because it is so simple. It's
Right.
almost like hard to believe. But I think, honestly, if I really think about all the miracles that God performs, even on the daily now, if you really think about them, they're also hard to believe. But in the case of the blind man, and everybody wanted to know how are you able to see? He says, I don't know. I was blind, but now I see. You
Amen.
don't have to know the how. You just have to know that it's and there's tons of obviously science and literature if you like to geek out on that stuff like I do. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, how? How does this work? I don't know. It just does.
But God did allow David to make this so simple because life is so complicated. So, you know what? So, why not have a simple solution to make our lives easier?
Well, and I always appreciate that his inspiration is of, from the Bible. Like the Lord gives him, I do believe he's divinely appointed in that way that he spent all of this time. And I just, every time he speaks, I just love what he has to say and his heart and love for the Lord and how he just wants people to be well.
Yes, yes, he does. I mean, he just wants people to live life to the fullest. And God, it says in the Bible that he wants us to be disciples. He wants us to go out and tell of good works. And that's not just his word. That's not just bringing people to know, Christ, but of all good works. And I feel this is a good work that we need to be spreading around the world.
Well, on that note, you're absolutely correct. And I appreciate you so much taking the time to share all of this with us today. And I look forward to just hearing how many people's lives are transformed by hearing your message. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me on. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Testimony Thursday on Faith Over Pharma. If that story stirred something in you, share it with a friend who's ready to believe that miracles still happen. Got a story of your own? Head over to faithoverpharma.org. I'd love to hear it. And if this podcast is helping you see things differently, leaving a quick review helps us reach more people who are done with Band-Aids and hungry for truth. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative, protecting your peace, and walking in the truth that your body was made to heal.